Greetings, peasants. Lord Oberon Featherbottom III, principal proprietor of Oberon and Oberon Realty, where discerning mouth-breathers discover unparalleled living opportunities in Mordheim. Allow me to present my latest offering, a residence of truly exceptional potential. This is not merely a dwelling, it is a statement. It boasts an abundance of premium features, skylights throughout, offering natural illumination. Alfresco dining, where you may enjoy a wonderful vista of the bustling and vibrant neighborhood. Original floorboards that are sure to delight when they suddenly transport you to the floor below. The latest bricklaying techniques offer exceptional cross-breeze all year round. If that is not enough, why not enjoy the fusion of nature and craftsmanship while the family goes wild on the play equipment? They'll never leave home again. The property comes partially furnished with modular pieces that can be arranged in an array of combinations, allowing for out-of-the-box design. So, what are you waiting for? Get off your straw mat, put the pig down and head over now. The property will quite literally be swept off the market in no time. I look forward to you scheduling an appointment for our next viewing by pressing the thumbs up button below. Without any further delay, let us now hear some words from the esteemed architect.
Property features may include structural instability, sudden collapse, and wet glue. Actual appearance may vary wildly from description. Seller assumes zero responsibility for injuries or emotional distress sustained within or near the premises.
Hey everyone, it's been a while. I recently moved house and honestly the unpacking has been an absolute nightmare, but I finally got everything out and I haven't been completely idle. I'm going to be attempting two firsts today in this video, making my first scratch-built piece of terrain and also my first Mordheim terrain. So I'm thinking this is going to probably be a two-part series. Today I'm just going to focus on the house, but in a future video I'm planning on putting this on a modular tile and building out the surrounding creepy landscape to go with it. And if I get really into it, I might even put together a whole board with sort of 9 different tiles and buildings and rubble and all the stuff you expect from Mordheim. So, all right, without any delay, let's get into it and let's get building. All right, so the wood I'm messing around with here is some balsa wood. I used the size that it came with out of the packet as the base size, and that just saved me having to do too much measuring and deal with my generally imprecise cutting and measuring skills. So I did cut these in half for the narrow ends of the building and then the full length of the sticks that I cut off for the long ends of the building. I then cut some grooves into the pieces, and that was to help everything stick together and hold in place a little bit better. So as you can see there, it all fits pretty well and is in line with the size of the base piece of wood. I then used some Gorilla Glue. So Gorilla Glue is really thick PVA and I like that. It's almost like a jelly and allows you a lot of flexibility in placing things down. I didn't use hot glue for this because I really didn't know what I was doing and wanted the flex to be able to change things if I needed to, but this Gorilla Glue was sort of a happy medium between something thick enough to hold it in place and malleable enough to sort of give me an hour or so to adjust things while it was drying. Then I just flip it over and put the final walls on. It's a lot easier this time with everything holding into place. And finally I just popped some glue in the corners, got the frame that was now finished and put that down on the base and adjusted it into place. So this next bit was a bit of an accident. I say it's an accident because it took a really long time and I was trying to cut out bricks that turned out really rough and in some slightly odd sizes, but it was kind of a happy accident because it was nice to have a few bricks that were a bit odd shaped, but I wouldn't recommend it. I had a hot wire cutter and I hadn't unpacked yet, and I wish I just went ahead and got that unpacked. I later did that and got a bunch of really nice bricks, but if you don't have that and you need to cut your own, this is a way you can do it. It was just not ideal. It took a long time and the bricks were pretty rough. And there you can see the bricks laid and some windows carved in. And these are the bricks that I cut with my hot wire cutter, which you can see I've got a lot more of and they're a lot neater. So to lay the bricks is pretty straightforward. I just put a layer of glue down and then place the bricks overlapping. Next I cut out some tiles, so I'm going to have a stone tile floor And I just use some thick cardboard for that. Then I make a part of the stairwell from the ground floor to the second floor. It's a pretty shonky construction, as you can see here, just using that thick Gorilla Glue to hold things in place, but it did hold long enough and well enough for me to get that done. And then I carved out a arched doorway out of cardboard and laid some bricks onto that. I put my stair in place and sort of shuffled that into the corner there, just leaving enough space for the final wall to go down when it's ready. Then I got some stairs by sort of shoving in some paddle pop sticks into the walls and put some trim along there as well. And then I put down my tiles throughout the building. And this did take a really long time. An audiobook is highly recommended, but it is very therapeutic as well if you enjoy your hobby. So this was the beauty of using individual bricks. I actually smashed down the wall by hand. I wanted to create an area where it looked like it was smashed in by something. And it allowed me to sort of get the shape that I wanted and place the bricks down on the floor in a sort of really scattered look. And throughout this build I use this mini just to make sure everything fits and it's playable. And this is where I decided to place the bricks. Just broke them up a bit further, made sure everything fit well, and then moved on to the next step. So I got some Mod Podge and blue-grey paint and painted the walls. And Mod Podge and paint just gives it a lot more strength and structure, while also providing a base coat, knowing that I won't be able to get into this level to paint later once the upper floors go on. That's how we look with our paint down. Next I give it a dry brush. I use some browny grey colours just to give it a weathered stone look and just brush from top to bottom, create almost like a scratched effect on some of the tiles there. Again, because I'm not going to be able to get down here later. Then with a ton of glue, I made a platform out of XPS foam, and the second floor of this building is going to be protruding out, so I placed that down with some matchsticks as fake supports for aesthetic purposes and nudged those into place. I then start working on the second floor, so I put some more stairs in and shoved them into the wall, as you can see, and then I started getting these long paddle pop stick beams which will form the base for the floorboards. Then I place floorboards down in a fairly haphazard way, just putting different lengths on, starting them at different places, so it looks like some mad builder that doesn't know what they're doing put that together, which in this case is a pretty accurate description of myself, so it worked out well. I also wanted to have a hole going through the floor, so I start snapping off some bits of paddle pop stick and start forming up that hole. And that's how we're looking with the floorboards done. So I wanted to have a ruined corner, sort of like something had really smashed one corner of the house in, and I cut up my frame and I sort of roughly snap that off so it has that look like it's just been smashed in. Next I start working on the walls for the second floor. So these are going to be wattle and door walls. I put some little window spaces in them and make a whole bunch of them that fit to the height that I want. So next was a moment of inspiration. I got some pine needles that were on a walk, so like a weirdo. I grabbed a whole bunch of those and put them in my pocket while I was out, and I thought they'd make a really great wattle from the wattle and daub. And I think they did kind of turn out quite well. So I place all of those one by one individually, just snapping off the lengths that I need. And as you can imagine, it did take a while, but these are the things we do for aesthetics, right? So there we are with all of those done, and I had a few ruined sections as well, just to look really worn out. So next I had some texture paint lying around. I think you could use anything. I had some snow effect texture paint, which is like a ground cover paint, and I used that for the daub part of the wattle and daub. And I just layered that on in varying thicknesses. And it's a nice texture for daub because it has this really textured effect that looks worn out already, which is perfect. And yeah, it sort of filled the role really well. That's how they look when they're done. Nice ruined sections in between and worn out sections. So next, because I hated my work so much, I decided to start hacking at it and continuing to destroy that corner of the building. So again, snapping off bits, just getting it to the point where I like the look of it without overdoing it. And decided to collapse the entire corner of the building there. As you can see, just pulled that down. So we know safety is incredibly important in Mordheim, so I worked on some railings for the second floor, just to make sure no one accidentally fell. And these are just made out of matchsticks. So there I am, placing them down. And now we have safety for all our Mordheim warbands. And then start placing the walls on the second floor. And thankfully I measured everything correctly and they fit really well. So onto painting the floorboards, I get a dark brown, a burnt umber paint, quite a lot of water mixed with that. And then I use varying amounts of water and paint, sort of dipping my brush in further or into the paint or more into the water, just to get a really varied tone as I paint it. And you'll see when it comes out the other side that it does create a really weathered look on the floorboards. I also painted the inside of the walls there as well. And I got some yellow paint and I used that sort of darker yellow to paint the daub. I watered that down quite a bit and just painted all around. That's how we look with our floorboards and walls done on the second floor. Quick layer of Mod Podge on the outside just to get it secure. Then I start working on the roof. So this is the ruined half of the roof, and that's a paddle pop stick and matchstick roof frame. And then our intact part of the roof there. And I just made sure the ruined section sort of aligned with where the damage is on the second floor. Then with my trusty Gorilla Glue and a nice right angled thing like this box, I got the roof glued together and used some weights just to hold everything in place. And this was a bit of an overnight job, just letting that really dry. And as you can see, it was still a bit bendy, and I used some matchsticks just to secure it, give it some extra reinforcements. That's what I'm doing here, just popping matchsticks where the roof join is. Then I start working on the third floor, so very similar to the second floor, just place some beams lengthways which will hold the floorboards up, and then lay my floorboards down, long ones, snapped ones, short ones, some missing, and just give it that really random, chaotic, broken look. Then I go to my hot wire cutter. I cut out these thin rectangular pieces and these triangles, and these are going to be for the roof. So I place these individually. There are other ways to do this roof that I've seen online, like using a bit of cardboard and sort of cutting incisions along it, but I really wanted to place individual tiles because I wanted some tiles missing. I wanted a big hole in the roof. I wanted the frame to be visible. So yeah, for me, individual tiles were the right pick. And you can see there, it's got a lot of different details and textures. And I like that you can see the underside as well. So onto the ruined half of the roof, I again place the tiles down individually and I leave some of the beams, sticks whatever the correct roofing term is, exposed, just to show where the damaged part is, and taking advantage of the fact that I built this frame so you can really see the damage that's been done by whatever hit it. And quickly paint the top floor, and then I dry fit the roof, just make sure everything fits where I want it to, and it looks pretty good. I then wanted to have a chimney that went through the roof, just because I like to make my life difficult sometimes. So I got this toilet roll, cut it in half, and used that as the base for the chimney, which I then put my bricks over. Start laying them one at a time until I get to this point. And then I start to let the chimney sort of taper in a bit. So I slightly indent where the bricks go as I move up, just to sort of form the top of the chimney. No reason for the change of colour in foam here. I just ran out of blue bricks and decided to go to white ones. And that's me building the top of the chimney that'll stick out from the other side of the roof, and just setting that aside. So now I am actually gluing the roof down, so you can't see it on camera, but there's lots of glue along the parts of the roof that will touch the base, and very carefully making sure it's even and the points are in the right spot. And then I get a few weights just to hold it down and leave it for a couple of hours so it can really dry. And as you can see, there is a bit of a gap between the chimney and the roof, and it probably wouldn't be seen by most, but it bothers me a little bit, and I fix that up just by shoving some more pieces in. I place the chimney on top that's flush with the chimney section below, and just hold that into place. And then I get these little triangular pieces just to finish that off and make it look like it is coming out of the roof and not glued on top of the roof. And then I get these long beams for the front, and that's going to be used to put some more planks along it so that the top of the building has this sort of planked effect, ruined planked effect. Similar approach at the back, so you can see starting with that one in the top corner, I put a plank lengthways and started placing more down, very scientifically, just cutting a diagonal bit of paddle pop sticks that were the right shape roughly and putting them in place. And because my work was so messy, I used these trim paddle pop sticks. That's just to cover up where my cuts aren't very accurate, and I think that sort of tidied it up a lot. So onto the triangular pieces I cut earlier, I sort of bend those to the roof shape and start plonking them along the top of the roof as sort of caps for where the roof is. And that's how we're looking at this point. So with some Cantor Blue and Mod Podge, I give the roof a good seal, and then I use some darker sections of Cantor Blue just to create some odd tiles that have slightly different colours just for visual interest. And took a similar approach on the other side as well, just a few patchy tiles. Then with my airbrush, I took some Payne's Grey ink and some black ink, mixed those together, and this was more for the underside of the roof. I wanted that to be quite dark, so I sprayed underneath until I got all that to the colour I wanted, and then I also sprayed a few dark patches over the roof again just to add a bit more interest. It's such a large space that it needed to be broken up with a few different colours and different tones. Then with a dry brush, I got a Glacier Blue, which is a very light blue, and gave the tiles a dry brush, just trying to catch the edges where they jut out. Then with some bone colour, I also dry brushed the door walls. And with some sepia wash, just randomly patch that on. And with that snow texture, that's what I really liked about this, is it sort of catches little rivets of the the paint, just creating a lot more interest on the walls. And I just painted some more of the trim and the new bits of paddle pop that I put down for the planks that are on the ceiling. Then I got some Sterling mud, it's just a thick texture paint, and I put that on parts of the wood, and it sort of adds a bit of a fibrous texture, grimy texture to the wood. Maybe it's mud, maybe it's where the wood's starting to really wear down. And then again, because this is such a large space, I wanted to break it up. I added some visual interest on the bricks, just using some greys, browns and terracottas in odd sections, just to make the brick walls look a little bit more interesting. Then I paint on the wood frame, just add a little bit of a lighter wood. You can see these sort of brown patches on the roof. I really didn't like those, so I sort of painted over those later and dealt with that later on. It's like a crackle paint. So then I used some sculptor mold, which is like a plaster, with a bit of water and paint, and make this slurry that will act as a bit of a mold or growth that's happening on the building. And I hadn't done this before, but it actually worked out really well. It sort of created an opportunity to cover up a couple of mistakes or areas. I didn't really like the arch on the door, for example, so I covered that up and had a few gaps that I could cover up with it, so it served a few different purposes. Just put that down wherever I thought it would look good. Then with this sort of sickly green colour, I added that more to the roof area, sort of like a mildew or mold sort of growing on the roof. And I just layered that over that brown that I didn't like and a few other areas. And then I actually flicked a lot of it on the roof just to create, like, the mildew had sort of built up in various areas. So I really like the look of that actually. So I put that quite heavily over the roof. Then got a thick wash, a very thin wash, sorry, with some airbrush thinner, and I just washed the roof and washed the walls. And I got these cages, I think they were from Temu or somewhere. I've had them for a long time, and finally found a use for them. So I put a bit of twine on a matchstick and threaded that through the cage. And then I also started making up these little boxes. So I really wish I had a 3D printer. I haven't invested in one yet. I'll just print these out, but in the meantime I made them out of styrofoam cubes with some paddle pop sticks. I just gave those boxes a quick wash in a slightly different colour wood. And I wanted this little man here to be stuck in the cage, so I got some fabric from an old t-shirt and I glued it all in and made him look like he was all rugged up in his cage, and then locked him in there for eternity. And then get my boxes in. So I figured this back corner of the building will be dead space. I can barely reach it with tweezers, so I thought instead of just having it there, I will use that to put a bit of terrain and a bit more visual interest. So I put those boxes right in the back corner there. And then with that same cloth I used on the man before, the skeleton, I draped them over some boxes, and I also used some inks and washes just to stain the cloth later on, so it looks really filthy and like rags that have been sitting there forever. And then carved out a little door out of paddle pop sticks and put that in a place where it looked like it had been sort of kicked in. So on the moss that I'd built with plaster, I sort of added a bit more interest by getting some actual moss, hobby moss, and putting that over some sections just to make it look a little bit more interesting, a little bit more of a rich green. And then with an even lighter coloured green, a flock, I put that into a few sections, again just to give it a little bit of tone and variation. And then I had some pebbles and put them down around where the wall had been smashed in, and just used a bit of PVA glue with water and a bit of paint just to secure that in. Then my very interesting contraption to hold my friend up here while he's glue dried, and attached him to the roof. So finishing touches, I got a few little posters, just printed these out online and just stuck those on. They're sort of dipped in watered down glue and some beige paint just to give them an old worn look. Just putting them around. I didn't want too many, just a couple to keep it interesting. So one there and one on this wall. And I sort of scratched this one up a little bit just to make it look like it's been there a long time and got a bit of rain on it or whatever. And that is the end of the video. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. It was my first scratch build. I'm really hoping to do a part 2 where I build out the scenery. Would love your comments. Let me know what you think. And thanks again, and see you for the next video.